From swinging a shovel on a building site to a PhD in 10 years was precipitated by the credit crunch of 2008 2009. My journey through education was down to chance and circumstance. The construction sector is always the first place that is hit when banks tighten their belts, their finances, and recession strikes. The boom and bust cycle of capitalism had me in its grip again, because this was the third recession I'd experienced. It soon dawned on me that I needed to dynamite my life. I decided to enroll on an access course as a mature student that led me into university, and I was determined to pursue what interested me for a change. It's drawn from a lifetime of reading and an avid interest in drama and culture to bring this text about. I did notice that the second generation Irish voice was underrepresented. I felt that needed addressing in an authentic way. I set out to engage with the forgotten and scattered voices from the various waves of Irish diaspora. These voices are largely working class in nature. In many instances, my narrative gives voice to marginalised characters that are in crisis. Voices that are not often portrayed by the fictional mainstream. These stage voices are often in conflict with each other, and the resulting tensions are loaded with post-colonial resonance and potential meaning. Importantly, these short stories have been fired from bits of experience, emotional memory, observation, and research in my interaction with the Irish communities near and far. I felt it was imperative to capture a semblance of Irish life lived in diasporic motion that steers away from cliche and stereotype. I wanted these stories to be fresh, tough, gritty, and above all, representative. I never dreamed that I'd be able to write like that at the beginning of my academic journey. But as I say, when recession struck, I was forced to reevaluate dynamite my life, as I said in the preface. How I did that, I thought, I could perhaps re-educate myself, a bit of social mobility. I left school at 16 into a factory, which I absolutely hated. Never completed my apprenticeship, and then went travelling and led a bit of a nomadic lifestyle ever since. And so the 10 years of study was quite a fixed, determined effort on my part, to stick at something so long. It wasn't intentional that way. I mean, I never set out to do a 10-year stint like this, but it happened because I thought the modern world was really encroaching on my life. Everybody was talking about emails, talking about computers, talking about this and that, and gaming and technology. It was technological age that was, I was starting to feel a bit left out. I couldn't even switch the computer on. And I went for an interview at a temp. It was somebody I know really well, and he honestly said to me, he said, you've got to skill up, your skills aren't valid any longer. So that's how I first reevaluated my life. And I think in many respects, we'll all have to reskill and relearn at some time in our lives now, as technology moves forward. It's a new revolution. There's no two ways about that. And I went to college, did the basic IQ test. They said, you can enroll, and that was a really steep learning curve for me. I couldn't really put a sentence together on the page, although I'd read stacks of novels and newspapers. And so, in fact, a lot of people on a building site used to say, "What the hell are you doing on site, Laurie? You just don't seem." I was always reading papers like the Observer or learning lines for a new play I was in, and so I was culturally aware. But I just needed to sort of get some basic skills or re-equip, with some skills. So that's what I did. I went to college, and and then learn about evidence and being self-analytical and analysis and objectivity and how to sort of conduct an argument on paper, and asking the basic questions like when, why, where, who, how, and evidencing those questions, on any given subject. History, English literature, sociology, they're subjects I picked, the humanities. And I found politics and philosophy often overlapped and sort of became very much part of those subjects, if you were developing an argument. Learned about bias, unconscious bias, and how society was rigged and controlled. I knew it intuitively, but when you go into the academy, you learn the theories behind such sort of power structures. And I found this totally I couldn't get enough. I was just open to it all, and I was persuaded to go to university. I mean, not persuaded. I didn't realise that was the pathway to university through our education college. That's how daft I was. But the next minute, I'm in university. And I'm just loving it. I picked creative writing and drama. Followed what I was interested in, and I just kicked on. Obviously at college I'd learned information technology and how to switch a computer on, although I was still a bit mystified even after a year of just how a computer works. It's something you absorb over time, I think, like learning to drive. You don't learn it on the first go. It might take time after time after time, and you absorb it slowly. And I was at university, and I think, I'd like to talk about the highlights of that sort of 10 years, really. And one of the highlights was being part of a play. I became, I was an actor. I went on an audition, and there was an inaugural project between Curve and De Montfort University. And they decided to put on two plays by Stephen Berkoff, East and Greek, and I auditioned for it, and I got a part in Greek, which was staged over a week at Curve, which was an amazing experience, and one that lives long in the memory. And I remember Paul Kerrison and Adele Abdul Sassoon, who were the artistic directors there, who guided the plays and mentored us as actors through 3 months of rehearsals. So we finally put the project on the stage in the Studio Theatre there, which was a great honour. And I remember Paul Kerrison giving us a tour around Curve when we first arrived, the two companies for the plays, and he sort of said that this is where the real material's done, this is where the real work, this is what I really enjoy, is here in the studio, putting on plays that matter. All the stuff we put on, he said, hugely, like in the main theatre, the musicals, there's a lot that's the money to sort of invest in the real work that happens in places like the studio. Putting on Berkoff plays. He mentioned Martin McDonagh as well, the Lieutenant of English War, second generation Irishman, Martin McDonagh, and he mentioned that play, and which I seen there at Curve, and I thought was an absolutely brilliant production. I relate to McDonagh's work in a big way because of his Irish heritage, the way he writes about Ireland from a second generation perspective. So that was a great experience. And Kerrison came out with a great anecdote as we walked around Curve. He said of Berkoff, because Berkoff's quite a character, and he said he was down in some soiree in London with Berkoff, and Berkoff shouted out, "Hey, you Wolf de Kerrison, why don't you put on some more fucking plays? Hold up in less." Kerrison said he never took him literally. He took him on merit. He says he was only too honoured to put on. And I've seen Greek at the Haymarket. and I seen Greek, a curve, and East, and I was just I studied East at Haymarket and Greek twice. He did East, and yeah, the second production was phenomenal again. He'd learnt so much from the first one, I think. And Adele looked after us with Greek, and it was a great experience. And, yeah, so he was self-deprecating about it. He found it quite funny, but Burkoff's quite an outspoken character, a maverick, and I felt honoured to be part of that process. Another highlight of my 3 years at Timothy University was writing a play for my dissertation in second year, and it's a play about Grace O'Malley, Granny Whale, the pirate queen, and which I've just researched and sent off to BBC now, the BBC Readers Room at the moment, and hopefully it might get read and something might happen with it. But I'd just like to show you some of the sort of technical, if you can see that, instructions at the top there, how the radio plays formatted, and that's the sort of thing I had to learn and mess about with on the computer. And it's just set directions, technical directions to the person who's producing the play. Every minute detail is written down in a certain way and a certain form. And but this is an extract, two extracts from the extraordinary meeting of Granny Whale, Grace O'Malley, sailing to London, lodging in London, and negotiating a meeting. It was a dangerous, perilous trip. She was under a lot of pressure at home, warring factions, and it's her desperate meeting and how she negotiates that with Elizabeth I, and it explores the tensions and shenanigans behind that. This is scene one. I want to read you two little monologues, one from Grace O'Malley's perspective and the other one from Queen Elizabeth. So I'll read the stage direction. Scene one, exterior, street, day, sound effect, horses, hooves on cobbles, shouts, chaotic street life of London, 1593, Bay under. Clear the way for Her Majesty's men. Come on, you, out of the way. Quick, alert her, they've come to us. Who? I mean, what do I tell her? Burley, boy, tell her Lord Burley has come to us. Now, hot lunch. Scene two, interior, dockside lodging, same time. Panicked Irish voices rearranging the furniture. Fade under and out of interior, monologue. Lions of the sea, powerful by sea and land. The mighty O'Malleys, reduced to snivelling and crawling, and me, Grace, over here, begging for the own son's life. The indignity of it. That's him now, is it? Ordered by herself with snide articles, no doubt. Words designed to trip me into execution. Sow, so she is. She's going to make me stew, sly to the bone, so they say. Sure, they're crueler than myself. Now, I've dodged death enough times. A few old questions shouldn't be a bother, but they are. She's as slippery as an old eel. Damn her. Hop onto yourself. Why am I getting so vexed? It's her. I know well enough she's out to pot and probe me, hark me back to places and things that are best chained tight. Open me up with her accursed articles, coring me like pulling seeds from an old apple. That's her game, is it? Sure. I'm salted and scarred with scrapes. I'm sea hardened. I've danced a jig or two with a keel of eels before. Not a bother, but her. Creaky doors opening and banging, shouts of panic and surprise, people moving about and chattering as Lord Burley's uncharged are ushered in. Excruciating! Oh, agony! Oh, you must excuse the groaning. Oh, my old pins are creaking. Greetings, Grace O'Malley. This wretched condition overtakes my manners. Confounded nuisance, this damned gout. The court extends a hearty welcome to your party to our fair city. We trust you've all settled in, Grace. Honoured by this courtesy, Lord Burleigh. You've caught us on the hoof, but we're talking in grand, thank you. Cherries, cherries, cherries. You must eat cherries. Handfuls of cherries. Cherries? They say they work wonders for the old gout. They say that, do they? Cherries. You hear many an old thing sailing on the ocean. Many things, I'm sure. I'll investigate that. I can almost taste it. And then we'll move on to scene 4 now, and this is when Lord Burleigh goes back to report his little meeting to Queen Elizabeth. So it's the interior, Greenwich Palace, music, court-style harpsichord, lute, mandolin, fade out, footsteps in vaulted hall. Well, what does she look like? She's like an old whale, ma'am. What am I, Lord Burleigh? An old white mare? A fine, mature mare, Your Majesty. We caught her off guard. She seemed flummoxed enough. Same age as me. An old whale meets a fine mare, William Cecil. I mentioned the cages at Wapping Gate, ma'am, like you suggested. Good. Did she flinch? Not one bit, ma'am. In a voice close. He will not say it. I can't see it in his face. He thinks I've been too soft with this woman. He is saying it to himself now. Why is she not exterminated? She knows how duplicitous and traitorous she is. Why does she keep her alive? Oh, Burleigh, you will never know that. It is in front of your nose that you cannot see. You rack your brains for my rationale. Your discomfort pleasures me. Surely I am allowed a little indulgence. Black Tom has me in stitch, telling me tales of a daring do. I punish myself and Burleigh as I piddle protocol. All in good time, then. After all, time is the endless equaliser. She was in jail as well. We both endured. Oh, yes, endure. I think she's hard and savvy, Your Majesty. And the articles? I did detect a slip of the mask return in the articles. She seemed a little put up by their detailed nature, ma'am. Good. They are designed to locate truth, are they not? Indeed they are, ma'am. Enough of Grace O'Malley. What of Spain? Oh, the usual shipbuilding nonsense. Another armada? Philip's not that stupid. He started sniffing around O'Neill and O'Donnell in Ireland. Has he? Sneaky, peaky. Tried to turn them, eh? Philip of Slypay, Lord Burleigh, methinks. We will have to do some turning likewise. That's just a little extract from the radio play called Pirate Queen, and that was one of the highlights of my as a dissertation piece for my BA, creative writing and drama at Guildford. And I did really well, and I was hungry for more after the BA, and I got a first, but I decided to kick on the year after and do an MA in creative writing. I liked staff down there, I got on well with everyone, and so I kicked on and did an MA. And because of Pirate Queen, I think, and because of that investigation and that piece of research, historical research, sort of got me thinking of Ireland in general as a subject to write about. And during the MA, my stories, not totally, about 75% of them, you know, 4 or 5 stories, 2 or 3 of them were very much Irish influence from a second generation Irish perspective. And and one of the stronger ones, I think, was a story called Jig, that Irish dancing. And I'd like to read an extract out of that for you now, when I can find it, of course. before I read an extract from Jig, I'd like to read a bit of an epigram that I used for one of the chapters in the thesis about music by Una Frali, and which sort of directly fed into my looking at theory, directly fed into the stories. You know, and I was reading this during my MA, but it ended up in the PhD. But it's Irish traditional music can be seen as a weather vane for cultural debates in Ireland over modernity, tradition, and the past. And I think that is very true for the nature of the Irish tradition. I mean, Irish dancing is, you know, it's definitely one that has changed and morphed into something, you know, a worldwide sort of brand almost. But this is Jig anyway, an extract of it. The sound of the ancient Philips reel-to-reel tape machine soothed Shane Williams. It had belonged to his dad, an heirloom passed down to him with a heap of spools dating back to the 1950s. Shane would climb up to the boarded loft space of the house and hunker between roof trusses whenever he felt down. And today was one of those days. The same thing kept nagging at him. How the hell was he going to find the extra dough for Alicia's dancing? There was always his eye in reserve, of course. He could reconnect with his old mate, Darryl Johnson. But did he really want to go down that route? Discotheque ructions, endless aggro. Darrow was still a face about town. The good old bad old days, scrapping, cavorting and scamming. No way. Shane smirked to himself as the ancient spools squeaked when he thought back over his chaotic past with his old mate, who he was well rid of, thanks be to fuck. Then he laughed aloud at a different memory. Dad, can I go Irish dancing lessons? She must have watched Riverdance 100 times. She'd throw them up the wall and way across the ceiling watching that bog trotting show. She has to be kidding, love. It won't last, Mary scoffed. But I want to learn it, Mum. From then on, Shane kept saying to Alicia, you think I'm forking out for wigs and fancy dresses? You've got another thing coming, girl. Alicia would give him a funny scowl, mimicking his last words back at him. She kept pestering. Shane kept pulling her leg about it. What do you want to learn bonk dancing for, anyway? His daughter went loopy any time he called it that, which egged him on further. Shane could be a right tease on his good days. Alicia wasn't a physical type either. She'd always been on her plump side, a bit of a couch potato to tell the truth. She'd never stick at anything too long, but this time it was different. It seemed way out of character. Surprised or what? He thought she'd gone daft. Then a month or so after she started the lessons, he noticed Alicia practicing her steps. She was buttering some toast while stepping it out, her little feet going at all angles, whispering the beat to herself. 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. He didn't let on he'd clocked her. Another day he'd spied her on in her school clothes. 5, 2, 3, 6, 2, 3, 7, 2, 3, 8, 2, 3. The dedication made him tingle. By God, she'd lost some weight as well, he thought. But when she started to shine at competition level, well, he even started calling it a fresh himself then, like you do. That was when he started getting sucked in. The proud dad syndrome is how he rationalised it nowadays. He felt she had the hunger inside her. She had the desire needed to stand out. Always willing to do that bit extra. He couldn't believe the change in her. He felt transformed as well, willing her on, leaning forward, watching her leaping, almost flying sometimes. Come on, girl, he screamed, hardly able to contain himself. Daft sods I am, he muttered, taking off the Irish voices on the tape as he reached for more spools that lay in the gossamer and the dust. It got back early today, rain, the work was awful slack, and this sodding weather was another cruel blow, the dead loss. Tired of paying the mortgage and the rest of it, never mind finding extra. Austerity, my arms. He mumbled under his breath, ripping us off again, pumps a lot of them. That's why he was going through these tape reels, listening to all the old crap calmed him down. It was like consulting the oracle or opening the I Ching. He was trying to make sense of what he needed to do, how to get hold of the shillings. There must be a way. messing with this sturdy machine, allowing to ponder and make sense of it all. Shane liked the manual aspect of handling those old things, the way the flimsy brown magnetic tape had to be helped onto a spool. Watching the spools made him smile. He loved the way the machine made its loud, swishy, crackety sound as the tapes transferred from one spool to the other. He smiled at the force he needed to press the wide, stubby stop button down and the way it clunked into position. The play button was equally hard to push down. It made a jamming sound and engaged with the mechanism. But the parties recording those reels were the real listening treasures. The hours of chit-chat, crack and song never failed to mesmerise him. Sure, that fellow would make a nest in your ear if you gave him half the chance. There's Auntie Kate, long dead now, God rest her soul, a legend of a woman. Dar had captured a chat all those years ago, her tongue sharper than an old sigh. Shane remembered that night in her cottage out in the bog, eating rhubarb tart by a crackling fire, plonked in the middle of a big sing-song by his mother. He'd been dragged back and forth to County Mayo as a boy. His warring parents took notions to flee back and settled, sometimes fleeing in the middle of the night, wrapped in blankets, running for trains, throwing up on boats, or shivering in bus stations. And did you hear? We found this puppy that's 3 parts white, I'm telling you, and half black. Strike me dead if he's not. Sure, he's madder than a thunderstorm in December, so he is. And those parties, everybody would be expected to sing a song, perform a dance, or recite a poem. A recitation wasn't an unusual thing either. Harry, will you sing the song? Come on, will you stop with the old dawdling and sing, man? I will if you enjoy. Good man, of course I will. Hurrah! We're all off to Dublin in the green, where the helmets glisten in the sun. On another tape, Shane heard his younger self gibbering back to him at one of those parties, speaking messages that had been coaxed to say for his grandparents back in Ireland. He flushed with shame. That's just an extract from a jig. I really enjoyed writing that. I did some research into Irish dancing and competitions and that, and the worlds, as I say, I was inspired to write it. So it's quite a long story, but that's just an extract, beginning extract from it. Another story which the MA went well, and I graduated with the MA. I got a distinction for the stories and my critical critique on creative writing and the process of writing. And with that really good feedback from my professors and support at Demontre, I decided to kick on and do a PhD. Wasn't planned at all, but I just fell into it really. And through that, I wrote a series of short stories that make up this thesis I've got in my hands now. And one of the stories is, perhaps it's worth mentioning a quote from that, which sums up really the line of research that I came across. This quote by the poet and educator David Moore about community and voices and the stories that I wrote during the PhD were juxtaposed against my involvement with community in the Emerald Centre. And David says, in some cultures, the idea of a writer not being of a community would be simply bizarre, since a writer is the carrier of their community's story through history and times of change. It's maker of tales, it's memory banker, it's time traveller. And I just thought that was quite pertinent, really, to sort of drop into this lecture, just because of the different forms of writing I've been involved with, poetry, drama, and now short stories. But yeah, it's a collection of short stories that make up this PhD, and because of that process, I was honoured with having a story included into an anthology of drinking stories called High Spirits Around of Drinking Stories. by Jonathan Taylor, edited, and Karen Stevens, and The Bottle and the Trowel features in the anthology. I'd like to read you an extract from it. I was inspired to write this story by the blacklist that was operated in London many years ago on building sites, construction sites. And in many ways, probably still operating in some way, troublemakers, union men, not really, really sort of tolerating on big sites because they're classed as troublemakers and stop progress. And anyway, this blacklist was uncovered, and it took years for these men to get bang these companies to rights. These tradesmen couldn't get work anywhere, so I was inspired by that particular historical event. The story's about two Irishmen in London, and it's called A Bottle and the Trowel, and it goes like this. You've got to hear this, Jerry. I was in the laundrette this morning staring at my washing, wondering why people seem so uptight over here. Look at the loony goons, you'd always say, with that twisted smile plastered across your mug. Remember that first day we hopped on the bus and the tube, Jerry, that mad sprint to work, green to the bone, carrying all our kit, lost in the bowels of London, creasing up with a laughing, bumping through all those shams. Fresh off the boat, weren't we? Clueless. London's a bastion of a place sometimes. Listen, Jerry. Those two dossers are in the laundrette again. They're hugging the machine for warmth, God bless them. And they're halfway to pissy heaven at 10 o'clock in the shagging morning. Lachicos, you whispered in my ear when we did our first washing there. A stain on our nation, Larkin. I loved the piss-taking way you said that. You sounded like the tea shop. Shut the harness enough, I whispered back to you. We're only one paycheck away from living in this laundrette ourselves. Life was a gas back then, wasn't it, Jerry? Now I realise there are millions who are only a check or two away from the street. Anyway, you're not playing those dossers today, Sham. You had a heart at all, that is. It's perishing out there. It would snap the bones off you, so it would, as they say back home. The cement was freezing on the trail yesterday. The Yellow Jacket Brigade kept looking at the thermometer, but it was only for show. The job was behind, so it is. They're bending all the rules now. Remember how strict they were at the beginning, eh? I'm still sending bits of money back to the Mar and the clear one. Larkin, you're soft as shit. Did you just speak, Sham? Are you smirking, Jerry? Wheeze, wheeze, wheeze. The sound of your ventilator still freaks me out. Staring into the dirty suds this morning got me thinking about Ackhill. How desperate things are back there. All us young bucks splitting. You can't eat mountains, can you? You said that to me once and you were dead on. There's nothing in that place now. Nothing. Wake up, Jerry. Tell me to shut the feck up. I'm missing you, bollocks. That dinky nurse who was in here 5 minutes ago, the one with braided hair. What a dollar. She's got a cracking smile, so she has. She said, I need to talk to you like this, as much as I can. He needs to hear talk from people he knows. It's crucial, she says. Well, I felt a bit stupid at the start with this talking malarkey, but that dolly keeps encouraging me every time she comes in to check on your ventilator or calibrate it or whatever else she does. I still clam up when she's about, though. She's ever so flirty, Jerry. She seems to like you. Keep talking to her as normal as you can. Speak to her if nothing's happened, she keeps saying. It's hard though, Jerry. Home. I still can't get used to seeing you like this. All these tubes and wires you're connected to. It does my head in, so it does. Sorry, I'm trying to tell you how it is. Top-notch staff over here, Jerry. I'll say that for it. Wheeze, wheeze, wheeze. The bankers have been let off the hop, Larkin. They're thieving gobshites, a lot of them. Simple as. You said that to me, Jerry, when we started that Hackney job. But the likes of you and me would have been flogged, flayed and banged up for life. We were thrown to the dogs, weren't we? Collateral damage. I didn't see it back then. No wonder there's so many Irish pissheads roaming this town like lost wildebeest. And yeah, it goes on. That story, so that's just the beginning. It's an industrial accident on a construction site, and Jerry is trying. He's on a ventilator, and the narrator's trying to get justice for him, and it's connected with the blacklist, etc. It's quite a poignant story. That got published in High Spirits, and that was another highlight of my education. Another story that I'd like to read an extract from is called Mountain Man. This also got published on an internet site called WordPress, and it's about a young Irishman, a young man who's connected with a bereavement officer on a council. In the first half, I'm going to read an extract from the second half, and it's connected with or makes connections to sort of exile, loneliness. An older Irishman passed away. He's got a bit cranky in his older life. Character. It's nobody about to bury him. It just falls on the state to bury him, and this lad's involved with that. And his bereavement juice is starting to play on his mind. He's also a recreational drug user, so he uses ketamine at weekends. This second half deals with a ketamine experience he's had while dealing with Tommy Gibland's burial. I'll burn the bastard who sold you this shit, son. Shut the fuck up, I'll cut your fucking ears off. But it's bog simple, son. Short back and sides, okay? You look good with no ears, son. Tommy's scissors were zinging like the sound of gas thimbles being brushed. Sit still, son. But ears, son. Matt was caying his tits off. He never experienced hallucinations as wild as this before on ketamine. He'd sniffed too much. This new stuff was pure. It was almost Kane. For fuck's sake. He was way out of his head. An alien jukebox was playing a scratched Johnny Cash number, which was jumping all over the place. And found my cleanest dirty shirt. Scratch, scratch, scratch. I'm wishing, Lord, that I was stone scratch. Matt knew he was in a dog-rough pub. A dead man was cutting his hair. Everything felt sticky. He could smell stale piss. There was menace in the air. Territory meant something here. An assortment of dossers was scattered about the place. He could hear their mutterings. Who's your man? Looks a right cunt. A wee touch to start the day is the only way, sunshine. Slide you down the old Gregory Better. Too fucking true, Jimmy. Matt tried to get out of his chair, but it was useless. He felt cemented in. And Sunday morning, coming down, scratch, scratch, scratch. These punters were as rough as arseholes, Matt thought, trying to get a grip. He felt jittery. Is this hell? No, he yelled out. Everything's upside down, he screamed. Matt was deep in the K-hole. Idiot, he'd only wanted a buzz, not the full fucking Monte. His dealer had dropped some stuff off the other day. This is dynamite sniff geezer. Find how you go, eh? Toodle-oo. Why hadn't he listened? Toodle fucking oo. There's no eject button in the K-hole. Shit, Tommy's scissors were really whipping around his head now, and the squeaky snip of them was tearing tufts of Matt's hair out. Tommy's scissors were blunt, for fuck's sake. Why horse anaesthetic anyway, son? But before Matt could answer, he felt himself being winched up and up and up until he was looking down on his own body. He could see Tommy slipping away, and a terrible beauty started filling the boozer as he floated above all the grot. Where had he heard that? He'd never felt like this before, gone this far. Matt was spiraling about, zipping through matter. He was being sucked deeper and deeper into the K-hole. He was air, a particle of air, zinging between the notes that filled the pub. Matt was pressing through people, passing through flesh, passing through the bar, zooming through the jukebox. He whizzed on the scratches. He was the scratch. Matt felt he was on it. He was in on everything, felt he had a handle on all things. He could move through anything. But as he zoomed through Tommy, he pinged back to the ceiling. I think we'll leave that one there. That's another extract from one of my stories called Mountain Men. Quite lucid, quite edgy, dealing with as I say, like a ketamine trip. I really enjoyed writing that and imagining what such an experience might be like. Angela?